Without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. This is this week's episode of Minding Her Black Business, a Brunch and Build podcast. This week we have my wonderful friend hailing from Detroit, Michigan, Miss Tiffany T.Barb Barber in the building. So happy to have you, sis. So happy to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. So happy to be here.
So this week we always kick off our podcast with our global footprint. As Blvck Womxn Worldwide, we are an international nonprofit, and you sisters are making it happen. We are in 109 cities worldwide this week, starting with Arizona, California, Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Hawaii, Illinois, Kansas, Maryland, Michigan, Missouri, New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Virginia, and Washington, D.C. You ladies are making it move in the United States. So we really want to say thank you. Taking it one step further, we also have sisters hailing from Canada, Nigeria, the UAE, Brazil, South Africa, the UK, Barbados, and Ghana. So thank you so much for chiming in, tuning up, and getting involved in this movement. This is a Black girl thing, and we are so happy to see you from wherever you are. Getting to our Know Her Name feature this week, Miss Tiffany T. Barber is a comedian hailing from the state of Michigan, city of Detroit. Tiffany, tell us a bit about background. How did you get into comedy?
Well, it's kind of interesting. I think that, first off, I've always been a comedian because I've always been goofy and silly. But how I got into it formally is that I was an adult protective services worker with the state of Michigan. I was a social worker at that time for 14 years. I had done CPS and things like that. And I had a coworker, a colleague, who was into comedy and invited me to an open mic, which is where anybody can go up and attempt, some entertainment. And she told me to get 3 minutes together. Now, 3 minutes may not seem like a lot to you or I, but it's a lot when you got 50 people staring at you.
Yes.
But I did it. I got 3 minutes together. And I talk a lot, so I was talking real fast. I probably did about 10 minutes of stuff in 3 minutes, But it went well. And from that point on, because I always say when it's something that you're meant to do, that God will order those steps for you. And it'll be a little easier. So next thing you know, my banker sister was a comedian. How odd is that?
Yeah.
She came out and she introduced me to a Detroit comedy legend by the name of Kool-Aid. He passed away to the late great Kool-Aid. The song actually "Living Your Best Life" by Lil Duval was inspired and written by Kool-Aid.
Wow.
Because when Kool-Aid had cancer, Lil Duval asked him, "What are you going to do?" And he said, "I'm going to live my best life." So that's exactly what happened at that time. Next thing you know, from that point, it was stage after stage after stage. And then that's when T.Barb was born. So that's how I got started.
So in terms of current projects, what have you been working on? Because one of the things that I know people don't always know about you, they know the comedian part and the professional, but you got your hand in a whole lot of pots. Tell me about some new projects that are going on right now.
It's the Black girl magic. It's that Blvck Womxn Worldwide magic. I'm actually a vegan, which is something that started right before I started comedy. So I'm a vegan chef. I have a platform by the name of Hood Rat Kitchen.
Love it.
Because we believe that vegan food can even be for hood rats. So I'm working on a vegan cookbook. I've been featured in the Detroit News newspaper for my chef wars. I do a lot of cooking consultations, things of that nature. I also have a hot dog cart that I've had for 15 years, which is called Delicious Dogs. We've been in downtown Detroit for a long time. We contract, we do Amazon, we do Blue Cross Blue Shield, things like that. I also am the general manager for a Black-owned radio station by the name of The Streets Radio. That's Streets with a Z. You can download the app. The app is Streets with a Z313. We play urban music. We play a lot of independent and underground music that people wouldn't otherwise be able to hear. But if you submit your music to us and it's quality, we'll play it. We're not going to worry about the big machine and who says what can be played. We play what we want to play.
Yeah.
I also am working with a team on a Black-owned television station by the name of Rugo Network, which is RUGO. It'll be launching in January because we believe that Black representation matters. And some of the reasons why we aren't always seen in the most positive light is because we're not controlling the moves.
For sure.
So we want to be in that. I just filmed the movie To Finesse, which will be out, I think, in about 4 months on Netflix. So be on the lookout for that with Zaytoven, Al Nuke. What else? I produce comedy shows. I do a little bit of everything. So I usually post a lot on my website, T.Barb is funny.com. And I'm also the author of a book, Faith Over Fear, Tales of a Retired Hood Rat, which I have my own book publishing company now as well.
I love all of this. All of this. So let's go back, because that's a tagline you've been using since I met you. Retired hood rat. What does that mean?
Okay, so a retired hood rat, because I get a lot of flack for this particular, but my parents met, and that's what I talk about in the book too. My parents met fresh out of prison. Okay, my mother was raised in foster care. My grandmother has been in a mental health hospital since the time I was 2 years old. I never seen my grandmother outside of this institution. My mother was abused, and because she was abused and she didn't have the support as a Black woman, especially back in the 50s and 60s, it led her to a life of crime where she met my father. When they got out of prison, and when I say they met in a halfway house pretty much. And they had a lot of addiction issues. So I am a one day at a time kid, a Narcotics Anonymous kid, an Alcoholics Anonymous kid. My father lost both of his legs and his kidneys. So I dealt with a lot growing up. I was a product of my environment. I was in gangs, running the streets, fighting, having sex with grown men, and everything else that a young Black girl who has no guidance would do, just being raised by the streets, or by parents who were doing the best because all they knew was a life of crime and drugs and things of that nature. I ended up going to college on my own. I went to Dillard University, a historically Black college. I caught a bus there.
Yes.
So retired hood rat just basically refers to the fact that no matter how you start your life, you never have to stay there. Because I went on to get an MBA. I went on to work for the state of Michigan for 14 years, own my own business, become a comedian. I have thousands of social work hours under my belt. I've won the Governor's Service Award here in the state of Michigan from the governor himself. So I just wanted to have a moniker where I could let kids in the hood and little girls all over the world know that I don't care where you start. You can be wherever. And I retired from being a hood rat. But don't forget, relapse is a part of recovery.
Look at you. Tell the truth. I love this. And it's so important because I don't think that there is enough narrative talking about how okay it is to be from wherever you happen to be at. I think being Black as a woman means that we're expected to show up a certain way often. And that's not necessarily how we're flowing that day. That's not necessarily where we came from in that moment. I think it's important for folks to see Black women be themselves.
Absolutely.
And you do it better than anybody.
You know what? I think that is a lifelong journey to be comfortable in the skin that you're in. And one of the things that I find is that a lot of times to have confidence is often looked down at as you're being uppity because you love yourself. So it's almost like we're trained to not love ourselves because we're worried about the next person and interpreting that as we think we all that. But what's wrong with thinking that you're all that? Yes. Everybody should think that they're all that, and it should never be a bad thing. And I agree with you because everybody want to act like we just all came out of unicorns and we lived this perfect life and our parents, loved each other. And that's not the case. So I'm okay with the fact that I grew up on Joy Road in Detroit, or that I sat in methadone clinics a lot. And, I'm from one of them neighborhoods where all the crackheads was my auntie. I had about 20 aunties. They all was crackheads. So I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with accepting that and understanding that from that, like they say, a rose that grew out the concrete. So
yes. I love hearing you speak about your authentic experiences. And the reason is because I don't think people understand that our neighborhoods are still families. I don't think people understand that our neighborhoods are still friends. There's a lot of love in the neighborhood that you don't necessarily see in the suburbs. So to sit up here and talk about truth and talk about where folks come from, I think that we need to shed a little bit more light on what it really feels like to grow up with these challenges. They're real, but there's still a lot of love inside of that family.
amen. And I think that even when you think of addiction, right? Or you think of a person on drugs, we have to still understand that as Black people, a lot of times we're not abandoning the kids. You know what I mean? We're still taking care of the kids, just doing the best that we can. And it's like you say, it's a community. So despite all of that, they still make sure I went to trumpet lessons. My elementary school, we didn't call CPS. They still, whatever I was lacking, they made sure I had. If it wasn't nothing to eat in my house, my neighbors still made sure that I had something to eat. If I needed somewhere to wash my clothes, the lady on the corner still said, come. My crackhead auntie was the one who would slip me $5 or $10 and say, go ahead, niece, and
Yes.
get what you want. They might go to JCPenney and steal me a nice outfit, you know. So it still was a community, and that's the only way I made it. I wouldn't have made it without them. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be have a bachelor's from Dillard or an MBA from U of D or credits in strategic management. I mean, I have an international business endorsement on my degree. I've traveled the world. And my crackhead aunties are the ones who made sure I saw Barcelona and Madrid and Rome. They gave me the confidence to feel okay with who I was, no matter how other people teased me or made me feel at that time.
When it comes to being a young lady growing up, I was just talking to one of my very good sisters yesterday, and there's a period where knowing who you are can be lonely. When it clicks for you before it clicks, when it clicks for you before it clicks for others, that's when you start getting called the names arrogant, bougie, stuck up, all of this. And it's not any of that. You just know who you are. And other people are just figuring it out. For you in your journey, when did you figure out who you were? With everything going on, who did you know who Tiffany was?
That's a great question. And honestly, believe it or not, I found that out about 4 years ago when I really got immersed in my comedy journey. And the reason I'll say that is because, and it's crazy, because sometimes we can have tragic things happen to us that just change our lives. So about 4 or 5 years ago, I got into a physical altercation, right? After that, I started really coming to these self-realizations and understanding that I didn't need to chase after this person and try to be her. I didn't need to try and dress like her or have the name brand things that she had. It was okay for me to be me. And the more that I got on the stage, one thing about comedy is it'll teach you to be comfortable with yourself because you don't have a choice. Yes. Because if you're not your authentic self, the audience can tell. You're up there, and being somebody else just ain't as good as being yourself. And about 4 years ago, I started dealing with the hard truths of the mistakes I had made, the hard truths, and accepting that I was raised this way instead of lying and saying, oh no, girl, I had a perfect life. It was, yeah.
Yes.
I just started saying, yes, I was in the methadone. Yes. And once I did that, first off, did God open up the universe for me in ways that I can't even describe. And it just propelled my life. So I think a lot of times when we're lying to ourselves, we're not able to get those breakthroughs that we need. But when we start I'm talking about 100%, I done let this man use me. Why did I let him use me? And really tapping into that. And once I started doing it, I'm talking about, and the work is hard. It's so hard to be like, I was wrong. But once you start saying I was wrong, then everything right will start to happen.
I think it's so important that you say the steps in that order. When you really want to push through a cycle that you're on, you got to get real about your own BS. You just have to. There's no other way around it, and there's no other way to stop the continuation of that routine until you sit with yourself. You have to sit with yourself and tell the truth about what you did do, what you didn't do. One thing I want to ask, as Black women, it seems like we're always asked to be strong. It seems like no matter what, the face got to be on, the presentation has to be there, because we always have things to do. You listed 7 businesses, I counted, that you're working on right now, without a breath, first 3 minutes, 7 businesses. But when you're trying to grow and you're trying to heal, when we're dealing with a Black community that, I don't care who you are, this is my favorite statistic, I don't care who you are. If your family is not in poverty, your cousins are. We are only 1.5 generations out of extreme poverty if you're not still there. So to act like we don't know or we don't understand or these are dynamics that we have beat, no, we don't. No, we don't. Not as a family. Instances here, instances there. Do we have folks that are millionaires? Yes. Do we have Black billionaires? Yes. But as a collective, Black people are still working through challenges that are very, very common to each family. Why is it so hard for us to acknowledge that?
You know what? And as you were speaking, it started to make me think about a lot of the false materialism that you see. So what you see is the poorest people that you know wearing the richest pieces that their poor dollars could get them for that moment, meaning the bags. And don't get me wrong, I like the fashion too, but you know what I'm talking about when you see somebody and
when your
like,
coat costs more than your car and you still don't have a home.
Right, you dirty as hell with a Versace belt. If you don't go to the laundromat, so I think that what happens is it's the shame. It's the shame. And I think that subconsciously, we don't understand how the media brainwashes us. And that's why I'm working so diligently on these media outlets, because it's a lot of brainwashing going on. And it's a lot of shame going on. And it's a lot of, like you were saying, lying to yourself. And like you said, and that's strong. So when you have to be strong, when you really don't feel like it, that's a facade. And that's what we're taught as Black people, to fake it till you make it, even when we should not be. And I started learning that, you know what a part of my strength was to cry. A part of my strength was to come into a room and say, today I'm not okay. And to work through it and to get through that emotion in a positive way or a healthy way, because we are human beings and we're emotional. Have you ever noticed, this is something I think about all the time, in raising Black kids versus raising white kids, right? Black kids, we ask a question and the mama like, don't worry about why I said this, just do as I say. White kids get to ask questions. That trains us throughout our lives not to question what is happening to us, because since the time we've been little, we've been told not to question. People have to stop looking in our community as questioning as someone not respecting your authority versus them just really wanting information and being comfortable to ask for that information. That's just like now with everything with the corona. Whether you want to wear a mask or not, it's like if you ask why, somebody's like, shut up and just do it. No, why can't I ask why? Why can't I ask what is the scientific method? Why can't I ask for some explanations? Because, so my son, sometimes it get on my nerves. I'll be like, shut up in my mind. But I let him ask, not too many, but at least 5 or 6 questions, because I want him to always be comfortable with expressing himself and understanding that don't act like you don't know if you don't know, because knowledge is power. And when they start to take away our ability to question, they take away our power because they take away our knowledge. That's one thing. And I just think that it's just the shame. It's the shame. And I'll give you an example. The other day, somebody posted about Section 8. And I know we got listeners from all over the world. So Section 8 is when the government.
Yes, explain to our people.
Let me explain it to my sisters all over the world. Section 8 here in the United States is where the government will subsidize your rent or your living expenses. And the girl was coming down and she was saying, well, why do people want to be stuck on Section 8? And I gave her a rebuttal and saying it's the American way. because we have been brainwashed to feel bad about getting that assistance. And do you know that that's why Donald Trump is a billionaire? Because his family received assistance. They received government contracts. HUD paid for their housing. But because of the brainwashing to some extent that we've been given, we don't understand. Now, I think the problem is we don't use it to our advantage, but we don't understand that that's the American way to let the government put you a step above. And because we're already 400 years behind in the United States financially, whatever they give you, you take it. But you use it to boost yourself. Stop feeling ashamed because you've taken that, because these people have been taking it for 400 years. When they had your ancestors picking cotton, you don't think that that was welfare? That was free labor. It was free. And so now when we get something free, oh, it's free. They've been getting it for free. So what if we get it free? Don't you feel ashamed about any hand up that you have to take? Just make sure that you use it to perpetuate yourself further. And I think that's the issue overall. I think we've been brainwashed to think of things that other ethnic groups think of as positive, as negative, so we won't take advantage of them. So we will take all our capital and buy something that makes us feel worthy, even though inside we still don't feel worthy because we haven't done the work. That
is powerful. It's so funny how when we talk about assistance, depending on the demographic, the word changes. So for some of our Caucasian brothers and sisters, it's called help. It's just simply help. You needed something, I gave it to you, I helped you. And we need to normalize for those that don't understand that when we as Black people receive what we need, that is also simply help. It's just help, the same help everybody else gets. We also find that we need help. And there's nothing wrong with that. Getting through the Corona situation, I think one of the things that has been enormously miscommunicated is the amount of disparity between, and Detroit is a great place to talk about this. COVID ripped Detroit wide open. It exposed every piece of systemic pain that Black people have become accustomed to, Detroit being one of the larger Black meccas in the United States. So our healthcare system being subpar, our transportation system being subpar, our school system being subpar, and the support systems around insurance being subpar. Now all of a sudden we have a pandemic and Detroit blows wide open. Stats across the state don't even matter because Detroit statistics alone have affected the whole state of Michigan. Governor declares that our state of emergency is based on racism. Racism is a state of emergency in Michigan. And what I want to ask you, T.Barb, is from a place of platform, you have a voice, you have been recorded, documented, are receiving publishing credit and writer's credit at this point. So as a member of the community that has a platform, what is the importance of utilizing the time that you have, those 3 to 23 minutes that you have anytime someone requests you to show up in a space to speak about what's going on in the Black community?
Okay, I think so. Because first, I definitely, before I forget this part, you spoke on semantics, and that's something that I've been writing on behind the scenes. I really plan on publishing a book about that because people don't understand how important semantics is. That's just like when, like the word bailout versus welfare, kind of. That was welfare. That was corporate welfare for the government to give them millions. But for us, it would be welfare. So I'm glad that you spoke on that because we do have to start tapping into that. But I think that it is important for any Black person, and not even just Black person, any person with a conscience or who cares, when they have a platform to speak on it in some ways. Now, I'm a comedian. I'm not trying to bring anybody down, but I also want to be tactful. And that's one of the reasons why I wrote the book too, because I feel like you sitting at home in your personal time, and then I get to share this story and let you know what it's like in the Black experience. But I think it's very important, it's crucial that at all times we are Black and we are okay with that. My biggest, believe it or not, my biggest fan base is white.
Mm-hmm.
As far as buying stuff or coming out. I mean, I get a big black, of course my sisters support me too, but Detroit is a rough place. First, let me definitely say that Detroit is rough. But I'm a D girl for life. But even in the midst of those circles, I'm not changing my hair. If I want to wear it straight, I will. But if I feel like wearing some braids, and that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And what I do is I don't mind saying I'm black. For whatever reason, it's like we have this problem with that. You can look at me, and for people who say they don't see color, it's a lie. I check them off the rip.
Yes.
Tell me that you're not biased towards me, but don't tell me you don't see color. Because if that's the case, you blind. Because you can't help, just like you see that I'm pretty, just like you see butt and booty and big old breasts, you see color. Think about it. Just like when we see, we see a man, we see, okay, this man got, so let's try and act like we're not blind. So that's one thing that I do. And I definitely speak on it at all times. And I let people know that deal with me, you're dealing with a Black woman. And as a Black woman, this is what's going on in my community. And when you spoke on Detroit, here we go, because I got these hood rat conspiracy theories, y'all.
Let's go for it. Let's get into it.
Y'all, they be like, okay, hood rat. And don't forget, I'm a retired hood rat. I'm America's favorite retired hood rat. So I got to put them up on it. But for me, when Detroit got hit, first off, I felt like we were the experiment. And the reason I say that is because there were so many places. First off, Detroit is not even in the top 5 for international travel.
Absolutely.
So some way it bypassed all of these international travel ports, LA, and came here. I thought that was always suspect for me.
I can confirm that for you. NPR reported that they rerouted planes from LA to Detroit. I was listening to NPR when they stated it. So that wasn't an accident. That happened.
Yeah, no, we're not. But I'm just saying, like, when you thought about it, like, the average person was like, okay, now, hold on now, Detroit, of all places. But it goes back to what I was saying earlier. You have a bunch of Black people that have been trained not to ask questions. Yeah. You have a bunch of Black people that have been trained to do what they're told. And then come to find out, and I'm a big NPR fan too. Shout out to NPR. My homeboys on, they booked me for a show too. So here is WDT, so shout out to them. But the CDC reported that the CDC in Atlanta had sent tainted kits to several locations. Initially, they wouldn't say. The city of Detroit actually has a civil class action lawsuit against the CDC, claiming that they felt that this is stuff that's not being broadcast. Like you said, if you listen to NPR and you get to doing a little more research, you'll see it. So the city of Detroit actually has a civil class action lawsuit against the CDC regarding the city of Detroit, regarding those tests possibly being here. But I felt like this. If we want guinea pigs and we want somewhere to test and see how bad this is going to get, we'll send it to a Black city where we can test it on people with diabetes, people with all different types of health problems, because their system is already flawed. People who won't question because they've been taught not to question and ask, well, how did this bypass all of my Caucasian brothers and sisters in mass and come here and become a petri dish? Mm-hmm. And that's how I felt about that when we got hit. Yes, it revealed a lot, but it also made me feel like we were the guinea pigs. Mm-hmm. However it got here, however they intended for it to hit our community, it hit us. But I felt like we were the guinea pigs. We were the ones placed on ventilators when we found out that ventilators weren't even the appropriate treatment. We were the one, when they tried to deploy that hydroxychloroquine, they sent it here to all the VA hospitals and encouraged people to get it. So I think that it came to Detroit and hit us so hard because they wanted us to be the guinea pigs. And if we want to get rid of some people in the population, why not get rid of the poor Black people in the population? And that's what they did. They took out over 1,000 people. And that was just here alone. And I don't understand how other places people was recovering, people wasn't getting it, but here it was like everybody knew somebody who had it and who had died from it. So rest in peace to all of those people. And I hate the fact that they never talked about immune system health at all. Everything was about take this. Nothing was about go work out, eat these foods, because you're going to be faced with this, but how will your body fight it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was my take on it.
Speak on it. I love the fact that as Black people, we have to be responsible for our own success. I love 2 points that you've made about being able to question in a child space, raising children that are conditioned to freely think, critically think, challenge things, not for the sake of being disagreeable or argumentative, but from the sake of, does this actually make sense? I know that's what you told me, but does this actually make sense? And then on a separate side of the coin, as adults, we have said this and said this again during 2020, whether it was the pandemic, whether it was police brutality, the different things that Black folks are facing in this moment. We have got to start questioning. We have got to start questioning these young people that are in the streets, these folks that are making decisions in the boardroom. We have to start asking, does this actually benefit our communities?
No, absolutely. And I think that, I mean, it's so many things that when you start getting to just the root, okay, because a lot of things we dealing with a 20-foot flower, but all the way deep down in the ground is a root. And when you start getting to the root, you start to really see. And I'm going to tell you one thing that really saved me, being a girl from Detroit, ghetto, raised the way that I was. I went to the school called Cranbrook.
Yes.
So Cranbrook is a world-renowned boarding school. It saved my life, to be honest. It's one of the components that saved my life. When I got to Cranbrook, they gotta have a poke kid program. I'm sorry. You know how when you watch the hood movie about the teacher who saved Jamal, I was the Jamal. You know, he grabbed Jamal and she took Jamal and put him in football, and Jamal didn't eat for a week. Now I used to always eat. Now that's one thing. I got the
snacks on deck. We had the snacks. You said snacks were on deck. We had snacks.
Yeah, I got them old dolphin parents. It wasn't no selling for crack. It was, you eat this, but your gym shoes might have a hole in them, but we got all the food in the world. You know, Thanksgiving was lit. But when I went to Cranbrook, I noticed the difference in the way that I was taught in Detroit public schools and the way I was taught there. I was taught there to think. They didn't care about memorization. They didn't care about they didn't care about that. What they used to ask you was, what do you think? And for the first year, I didn't know. I don't, what you mean what I think? Who cares what I think? The book said, no. They was like, no. What do you think? So you read this. What does it mean to you? Yeah. It took me months to, what you mean what it means to me? Nothing means nothing to me, because what does it mean to them? No. And she would correct me over and over. I want to know what it means to you. She says, I don't care if you say it means nothing to me. Just say, well, based on page 35, when I read this, it meant nothing to me. And a light went off like, whoa, they're teaching these kids how to think. They're not teaching them how to memorize. They're not teaching them how to do what the next person do. They're teaching them deductive reasoning. Based on me reading this, I come up with this. And it was like, whoa, we don't teach our kids that. We teach our kids how to follow authority, how to listen, but not how to come up with their own ideas, their own thoughts, and be their own person. And that's when it started changing the way that I thought about life and changing who I was as a person.
So even in 2020, because I know we've got a bunch of young listeners that have various ideas about education, is it fair to say education was part of what saved your life?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I don't think that everybody has to go to college. For me, because of where I was at the time, because I was at a point where I was fighting. I've had so many fights. I was at the point where I was getting shot at. I had been stabbed. It was a lot going on in my life at that time where I needed to leave that environment I was in, and college just so happened to, God, like I said, opened because that's one thing that I've noticed. When God has an ordained purpose for you, he already has factored in your stupidity. So he has already factored in that she gonna be stupid for this period to this period. You know, she gonna do something dumb. But education it saved me. Thinking saved me. My mind, my Black girl magic, my thoughts saved my life.
I love that you mentioned that going to college, as far as the degree portion, is not the point. It's the education. It's being able to think wherever you get that from. Some folks are self-taught. We have folks that have law degrees now that have been incarcerated for over 10 years. It's not about the building. It's about what you took from the experience. So I love that. I want to pivot slightly. The last part that I would like to tackle is you move in a lot of powerful spaces. You deal with big, important men in these big, important spaces with all this money and prestige. What does that feel like being a Black girl?
You know what? I was just thinking on that. And one thing about me is I believe in the attitude of gratitude. So even when I was dealing with the hood, you know, I just was always thankful. I think it feels great. I think that it lets us know that we are important. So often the Black woman is diminished to feel like we have no importance. We have no significance. Because think about it, men are over women, and then white people or other ethnicities seems like they're over Black, and then now you're Black and you're a woman. So it's like, whoa, that's like a drop. So for me to work in these circles is just a godsend. It lets me know that I can think just as well as they can. Maybe physically, and don't be wrong, I believe the king, you know, our kings are our kings. We have to definitely uplift them. But it let me know it's okay for me to be uplifted as well. It's okay for me to be in this powerful room and feel important as well. I don't have to be the secretary here unless I want to be. If you want to be the secretary, because that's an important role, because who else going to take the notes? But if I don't want to be the secretary, if I want to be the CEO, if I want to be the vice president, I can be that, and I can use my feminine energy in a way that a man never could. Yes. Not only can I get you with my mind, but I can also charm you. And I think a lot of times as women, I don't want to be looked at that. No, take your womanhood and use it to further empower you. Take everything that you have, whether it's your look, whether it's that you can dress, whether it's that you're smart. Don't be ashamed, because that's another trick in brainwash. Yes. Use every part of your energy to make it happen. And that's what it taught me. Like, yeah, I'm a girl. I don't want to be a man with y'all. I want to be a woman, but I also want to let you know that I'm valued as well. And of course, it always feels good to be around the shmoney. You know what I'm saying? Come on, not the shmoney. So it does, especially coming from nothing. Because we ain't had nothing. Like, we ain't have, I don't even throw anything away to this day, because I never had anything new until I bought it for myself. So growing up, we took everybody hand me down. So it feels good to be valued. It feels good to know that I can make that money. And like you said earlier, create that generational wealth. Because a lot of times we only thinking about us. Yes. We have to think about the next generation. Wealthy people think 3 generations ahead. Poor people think about in this moment. So and to learn, absorb everything you can from these guys. Now, suck it all in and let your lips stick and your teeth pop and your dimples flow while you're doing it at the same time, girl. Because trust me, you got something that they don't have, and use it to your advantage.
When sitting in these spaces, we were talking a bit before the podcast got started about the new movie you were shooting. And you were mentioning a situation where somebody might have a vision for you. They might have put you in a place and they're like, oh yeah, she's talented. We're going to give her this cute little role over here. How do you use your voice to fully take advantage of situations?
First off, that's another reason why I think, even going back to the asking questions, we have to be comfortable with speaking up. And when I say speaking up, I mean you play your position in your role, but you play your position in your role the best. If your line is be quiet, then you don't say be quiet. You say be quiet. You know, like you take that and you make it yours. And then once you do that, somebody say, dang, she said be quiet so good. Say shut your mouth too. You know what I'm saying? So now you'll find yourself moving. Also, I think it's so important that when you get to certain spaces, to communicate that energy with the universe, to say a prayer, to say something to yourself. And when you're entering a room, before you ever get in that room, to have a moment of silence and say to yourself in your mind, because the universe is so intelligent, it's outside of anything that we could ever think of, to say, when I walk into this room, I want to get this out of it. Whoa, I hope when I walk in here, I'm able to get a better part. I went in as an extra, okay? I drove to Atlanta, but because of the credit, it's a Netflix credit. So you need those credits and entertainment to be taken seriously, okay? And a lot of times I think we get anxiety looking at the big picture instead of looking at the little steps. And I got in there and I said, look, I'm gonna be humble. Well, you know, but humble, not the actual definition, because when I looked it up, I hate that word, but I'm so used to saying it. But I'm going to be confident in who I am, but I'm also going to pay attention to the cues. And it went from that to, okay, now, nope, we want you to say this. Okay, now you got this whole big scene that's a very important scene in the movie. And I took that and I just made it my own. So it's very important when you're stepping in a space to first imagine what you want, speak what you want, and when you get in there, to make sure that you're vocal. Only thing a person could do is say no. Hey, I know y'all had me for this role, but if y'all have a bigger role for me, I would love to. I would be honored if you had a speaking role for me. I think that I would be great at speaking role. You have any ad-libs for me? Or even to say, is it okay if I you know what, during this scene, I think it would be great if the girl said, oh no, can I say that? And let the director say, you know what? Oh no. You know what I mean? So you have to just be creative. You have to speak it to the universe, and you have to be ready. You gotta be ready. Don't come in there doing all that. And then when they say, oh yeah, and you like, ready, set, focus,
I love it. This has been such a blessing. Thank you so, so much. The very last part I want to ask, because in the role of a comedian, I have seen yourself, I have seen Kevin Hart, I have seen Tiffany Haddish, I have seen Chris Rock take something that started as strictly entertaining people, making people laugh, connecting with an audience, and building a platform where you are able to direct the mood for that moment. For a huge audience. It's like you said, millions of people. People don't understand how powerful comedy can be. How many comedians are moving mountains, including yourself right now. How does that feel from your perspective in this moment? How does that feel?
It feels amazing. It feels amazing. And comedy, I think that people don't understand how important it is to laugh. Laughter sets off the same endorphins that doing drugs does or having sex does. So to be the person that makes so many people happy actually makes me happy. And like you say, commanding the attention and turning energy from negative to positive, it's a feeling, it's euphoria. It's a feeling that you can't even imagine, but it's a feeling that you'll want to have over and over and give to people over and over. And I think that when you come into the role, instead of thinking about what you can get out of it, thinking about what you can give to others, it'll take you so far.
Well, as we move forward in this mission, I will be walking hand in hand with you, T.Barb, on whatever you need, because I love all of the representation you are affording the Black family, Black women, from Black-owned radio station to Black-owned television, just taking our voice and amplifying it to the moon. I am so proud and impressed and honored to know you, to support you. Girl, I'm serious. You have been killing it for years. And I don't think people know that. How long have you been doing this? Because this wasn't over
4 years. 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah.
So for our young lady listening, because I know she has ran off all of these accomplishments, you got to stay after it. You got to stay after it. It doesn't happen.
You can never give up, and if I could leave anybody with anything, it's just to never give up. And remember, somebody told me something one day that really stuck with me, that the owner of Starbucks was denied for a loan 454 times
Mm.
before one person gave him the business loan. And Starbucks is the world's biggest coffee chain. So it made me think, yeah, because you get embarrassed in your ego and you're like, oh, they don't understand that I'm talented. They don't understand my story. They don't know what I've been through. But so what?
Mm-hmm.
So what? Don't worry about what they don't know, because all it takes is one person. And sometimes, believe it or not, God may be shielding you from the situation you may think is right. God may say, you know what? You think that's so right, but just keep going. Because when I give you the situation, I'm going to put you 20,000 steps above whatever you would have settled for. So just don't ever, ever, ever give up. And when God gives you an ordained destiny, believe in it, follow it, and just keep going.
That is a word. That is a word for the people. I want to circle back to our mission a bit. Blvck Womxn Worldwide is a charitable nonprofit that's established for the education, advancement, mentorship, wellness, and financial success of Black women in every walk of life. We recognize that COVID-19 was the largest disruptor to the status quo in our lifetime. So during this 2020 global pandemic, a team of brilliant Black women analyzed the existing realities of millions of Black women across the globe. And what we found out, just like in today's conversation, is that our pain and our frustrations are not isolated. So using a global lens, we seek to develop the technology necessary to make protecting and supporting all Black women in our ventures sustainable. The approach that we use as a sisterhood is tech and teamwork to create the first global database of this kind. We connect individual Black women and their children with solutions powered by Black women using our mobile phone. We break barriers for Black women-owned brands and businesses through education, capacity building, community, and connection. And finally, just like today, we build bridges that repurpose the $1 trillion annual Black spend for the personal and professional development of Black women worldwide. So I want you all to go on IG. I want you to follow T.Barb _. I want you to check her out and all of the moves that she's getting ready to make and continues to make on a regular basis. And when you have the opportunity to advertise, when you're seeking to advertise in Detroit's market, I want you to hit her up. We should be spending money with one another. We should be supporting and celebrating one another, seeking and connecting on purpose and getting involved. The very last thing that I ask of our listeners today is to tell our story. Black Women Worldwide can be found at www.blvckwomxnworldwide.org. We will be following all of the stories of our ladies that are in the sisterhood, including you. And we hope that you will spend money together. We hope that you will cheer each other on. And as you develop ideas and sit in these rooms, make sure you pull each other up as you move. It's important. I want to thank you so much, Tiffany, for being on today. You have given us so many gems about authenticity, speaking up, knowing who you are, healing, and making sure that no matter what, you never let anyone put you down, because you know exactly what you've been through, whose you are, and where you're going. So I just want to thank you.
And thank you, ladies, so much for having me. I appreciate you guys even starting this platform, and you have my full support. So anytime you need me, let me know. Thank you guys so much.
I love it so much. You guys take care. We'll see you at the same time next Saturday. This will be posted on YouTube. Check us out, follow us, and let us know how we can support you. Welcome home, sis. Take care, everyone.